Hello, hello. My name is Jessica Rice. I'm the founder of Jessica Rice Coaching and the host of the Hello You Show podcast. And I wanted to talk to you about this thing that's been going on or in my mind this morning that I felt like was really relevant to leaders in today's market. And there's this one perpetuating thought that really keeps coming up for me is, we are what we think. Now, you may have heard this saying before. I'm sure it's not anything novel. But as I was thinking about it more, I really just wanted to expand on this a little bit with you. So, as leaders, I think we tend to kind of lean into various aspects of ourselves and what we consider ourselves to be. Some of us have these labels that we put. I'm an expert. I take charge. I'm incredibly strategic. I'm wise. I'm stoic. I'm compassionate. And all of these are wonderful things. But sometimes we have these external personas, but internally we have different thoughts about who we are as a leader. And we might feel even sometimes a bit trepidatious, a bit worried. Maybe we have different, anxiety levels that others are going to kind of see through the facade. They're going to see through into ourselves that maybe we aren't exactly the people that we're hoping to be, that we're hoping to be seen as, that we're hoping others see within us, and that we desperately desire to be. And so we kind of lean on these different aspects of ourselves. We might even take pride in it, but we also have this mental load that we are carrying. And sometimes we might even ignore other parts of ourselves simply because we just haven't spent the time to develop them and to grow them, or we may not even see them as truly that important and dismiss them all together. And so, we can put ourselves into these various scenarios, and when situations truly arise where we have to step up to the plate and maybe come outside of our comfort zone, is when it truly matters how we see ourselves. Because how we see ourselves, how we view ourselves, what we think about ourselves determines our actions. It determines how we respond in various situations. Of course, there's always room for improvement. But if we don't look at ourselves as, the person who is truly capable of doing something, then we start to struggle, right? We don't see ourselves as capable in specific scenarios. And so therefore we act accordingly. And so when we can take ownership of our strengths and our weaknesses, the qualities that, enable us to serve in a greater way, we can not only, start to see ourselves fully, but respond as that person would in these given scenarios, because we're seeing ourselves in a different light. And why this kind of came up for me this morning, especially as I was listening to Lewis Ho's podcast, he had Craig Rochelle on there. He was talking as a guest, and he said, you do what you do because you believe you are. You do what you do because you believe you are. And in there, he was really talking about not just the actions that we are, doing, that comes later, but truly the focus on ourselves first, really looking at what our beliefs are about ourselves. And so if we take this back into our leadership, we can ask ourselves these questions. Do we see ourselves as capable leaders? Do we see ourselves as calm and in control? Do we see ourselves as wise and strategic? What type of leader do you not only see yourself as, but aspire to be in a greater way? And when you start to think about that, who do I aspire to be? What type of leader am I? What are my core values? What is my integrity in the scenario? And how would that person show up and respond in this situation? See, that was the question that he mentioned that we should really be asking ourselves. How would that person then respond? See, sometimes when we're looking at ourselves and we don't feel like we are capable, then we're going to respond from a different place. We're going to respond maybe in a place of fear or worry or anxiety. And we're not going to look at ourselves as capable in that scenario or as confident in that scenario. This is truly profound. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced having been told to do something that might have been outside of your comfort zone. And when someone else asks you to do something that's outside of your comfort zone, you're being told that you have to do this. It is no longer your idea. It is not coming from your own internal, agenda. It's coming from external resources. And so we do it because we're told to, not because we wanted to. It's not our own. And so we can detach ourselves from the action and do things beyond maybe what we would ordinarily do. If I think back to myself, and maybe you have jobs that you started when you were younger, maybe you were doing things that you had never done before, and it was a stretch for you, and it pushed you beyond limits. For me, it was waiting tables. I was incredibly shy and insecure. And I started to have to figure out who I was in this moment where I was having to talk to all of these different people and juggle all these different orders and all of the things that are required when you're putting yourself out there and in service and working for tips. It pushed me to see myself also in a different way and recognize things that I was capable of that I didn't realize that I had been capable of. So it was somewhat of an awakening. And there is truly a difference between pushing ourselves into scenarios where it's too far beyond, where, we've stretched ourselves too far because we haven't been able to go up the step ladder yet of growth, of that zone of, proximal development where we are just stretching ourselves enough, which is why it's so important as leaders that we are continually making room for growth in these various areas. Because if we're not paying attention to certain areas, then we might have to step into certain areas where we are stretching far beyond that. But also, when we can start to see ourselves fully and taking ownership, not from arrogance, but from humility, in a place where we can start to say, yes, I can show up and do this. Yes, I do have the capability to be this. Then we can start behaving and responding and making decisions as that person. So if you were to, really think about it for a minute, how many times do you respond to situations from being in a place where maybe you're stuck in your head a little bit? Maybe you're in a mental loop. There's stress, there's worry, there's anxiety, there's a lack of confidence. How does that impact your decisions? Or maybe a lack thereof. Maybe there's indecision that's happening. I want you to think, if you are a servant leader and you are asking yourself, as the person that you aspire to be, what you would do as that individual, would you respond differently? Would you come at it from a place of servanthood where I'm in service here? It's not because I'll really want to answer the call even fully to this. Maybe I don't feel fully comfortable, but in service, I show up as a leader in this capacity because my team depends on me to do it, because my company relies on me to be this. And it's not a matter of being false. It's a matter of owning some of those hidden qualities of ourselves that maybe we're not looking at, rising to the occasion. See, if we aren't giving ourselves or our team the opportunity to rise to the occasion, then we are doing ourselves a disservice. We don't fully know what we're capable of until we're put into that scenario, which is true, right? If we think about first responders, some of them might realize that they're capable, but I bet more often than not, they don't. And you can think about how many different types of roles that people go and put themselves into. And until they're in that moment, do they recognize that they have a skill they may not have seen before, discounted or disqualified. And so if we stay stuck in that place, we'll never allow for ourselves to grow. So if we're acting in this place of who I aspire to be and readying ourselves, maybe we can think of it as our superhero, leadership persona. How do you then respond? How do you then deem yourself worthy? Worthy of this call, worthy of this place and role that you have and that you hold, because others are relying on you. And when we start to think about our careers, most leaders don't know where they're going to be in the next 5 years. Deloitte did a study, 55% of CEOs feel uncertain about their roles as it relates to the volatility of the market. Gartner did a study, 46% of leaders don't feel adequately prepared to lead organizations through the changes that are currently happening and challenges of the future. And this then leads to a sense of uncertainty into their career trajectory. I can attest to that with many of my clients. When we're talking about where do you see yourself? What is your vision for the future? Where do you want to be within 5 years? And it's not always a title. Sometimes the mistake is that we think, I don't know the title. It's not the title. What do you want to be doing? How do you want to show up? What are the activities that you want to be responsible for and participating in? Really getting clear on that. How do you want to be shaping the culture of the organization that you are in? What types of ideas and innovation do you want to be contributing to? What types of strategic business direction do you want to help hone? Thinking in those terms, title aside, can help to bring a sense of clarity. But where do you see yourself? And do you fit among some of these leaders? Do you fit under the leader where maybe you don't know? Maybe there is that lack of clarity for yourself, or lack of, there's ambiguity and uncertainty, maybe even fear. There isn't a right or a wrong answer, provided that we have awareness. Because when we have awareness into our thoughts, when we have awareness and can really truly see for ourselves the truth of what's coming forth for us, then we can actually decide how we want to respond. We can decide what types of actions we want to take. We can start to decide where we want to start taking ourselves. This is key. This is the key part, because sometimes we aren't looking at it in those terms. We're looking at it from a place of either fear, uncertainty, stress, and it just keeps this storm brewing inside of us. And so we're responding out of this place, which isn't helping ourselves. It isn't helping our teams. It isn't helping our organizations. And so when we can lean back into our leadership, who we are, our integrity, our core values, our strengths, and our weaknesses, having awareness around all of it is so key. Then we can decide. Now we have the power to decide what type of leader we want to be, how we want to show up, how we want to respond to the call, what type of individual we want to show up as every single day. And we can stick to that as a cornerstone in our leadership. So that on those days where we tend to, when we're under stress or worry, we tend to fall back to old patterns of behavior and thoughts that we can stick to and have something to hold on to and grasp and say, no, this is me now. This is me as a leader now. I am not this, I am this. And I know what I'm capable of, and I can step up to the plate, and I can do this. If you would like to dive a little bit deeper on this, talking about what your desired leadership is, your career goals, your trajectory, I'd love for you to join me next Tuesday, October 22nd at 12 noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. We're going to be meeting for an hour in this workshop. We're going to be talking about some of the changes that are happening in leadership, what some of the expectations are, how we start leading into the future, and how we can start developing personal growth roadmaps for our leadership in ways that are actually simple and easy. It doesn't have to be so complicated. We can make it simple, we can make it easy, and we can make it very possible for us to continue to stretch ourselves, for continue to grow, continue to ready ourselves so that we are stepping up and showing up as that leader that we desire to be. And that helps us to think about how we then move in through our career and create strategies so that we are thinking ahead and being strategic with our own careers. So I'd love for you to join me. The link is in the comments to register. I look forward to